Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report. I'm Dom Nice.
And I'm Charles Firth.
Author of American Hoax, a book that it did very well in 2006, but you bought too many copies of it, didn't you, Charles, back in the day?
Yeah, I don't know why I ended up with so many copies.
I think you actually convinced me to buy them for the Chaser website, which I was then running, and I thought it'd sell quite well. And it sold well from your perspective because we paid you for them.
Oh, is that really?
I think that's what it was. So sorry about that. I was told that if I bought more, I'd get a discount. And let's just say that if you go to chasershop.com, you'll find out that we've still got them. So help us not make a loss on those. We'll tell the story about how Charles had to move all this huge number of copies a bit later on. But we should start with something newsy, Charles.
Yes. So Tanya Plibersek, the Environment Minister.
Yeah, I mean, someone who really, we know, she's very committed to the environment. She really, it's a portfolio. People thought, she was in education. Is it a bit of a demotion? She said, no, look, this is the most important portfolio there is. It's securing our future.
Yes, that's right.
How's she going? I mean, how much of the environment has Tanya Plibersek saved in almost a year since taking over the portfolio?
I think she saved a few koalas the other day. But, yeah, she's just announced, she's just approved, actually, 116 new gas wells in Queensland.
116?
Which is good because if you think about it, gas is part of the environment. Like, it actually comes out of the ground. It's part of...
I understand it's called natural gas, so it must be natural.
It naturally spurts out. If you dig a big enough hole, it just naturally spurts out.
It's a natural product. I mean, it's just part of the environment. I mean, humans are part of the environment. Koalas are. Rainforests are.
Burning fossil fuels. And it's just part of the environment.
Is gas. Yeah. Well, I mean, that just sounds like a nice thing.
Yes.
How does that, though? I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah.
Weren't Labor's going to, if elected, have a more ambitious climate target, Charles? Was it?
Yes, target.
They were going to.
Yes, they've got a more ambitious target.
They were going to do more than the Morrison government by 2050 to reduce emissions. So how does the massive number of gas wells tally with our carbon emissions? Have they figured that out?
Dom. They've got a more ambitious target.
Oh.
You see, the key is the target is more ambitious. Now, how they get there, that's a completely different thing.
Well, this reminds me of my experiments with the sport of archery, where there were targets, but the notion of hitting the targets, that was never going to happen except by accident. When I had the bow and arrow in my hands.
I mean, I had the target of being incredibly tall and good looking.
Yeah. Do you remember we played darts at the pub and I didn't hit the dart? I was very bad.
Yes.
I was terrible at that. So, it just goes to show.
In fact, Dom was so bad at electronic darts where the computer actually keeps the score. It's really useful. But the computer would get confused by how bad Dom was.
Like missed the dart book.
Yeah.
So I just feel that there are targets, but did the Labor Party promise to hit the targets? Did they promise to get a bullseye?
No, exactly. There are a lot of... And look, you've got to look at it from Labor's perspective, right? On the one hand, you've got the total destruction of the planet and, the extinction of humanity. On the other hand, there are some key marginal seats in Queensland that you wouldn't want to lose at the next election.
Well, it's also worth noting. I mean, the Greens are going on about it. The Greens are up in arms, I can see. But what else are they going to do? They're not going to vote with the Liberals. The Teals are upset too. Some of the Teals seem to be annoyed by the decision of I think Labor's selling the environment short. But as against that, what else can they do? They absolutely nothing. So the only option is to side with the coalition, who presumably are also in favour of the gas wells, and if anything, would have wanted more.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is the real trick that Labor Party has done with this is the 116 gas wells are going to be done by Santos, which famously doesn't pay tax. So if you're going, this is just a cash grab by the Labor Party for extra...
to make money.
Mining royalties.
Right.
The answer is no, it's not.
So we won't make any... The Australian people won't make any money out of this. No. But Santos will.
No. Yes, exactly. And it's not like, we'll be... You might be saying, it'll it'll be like the West Australian scheme where, you put aside a certain amount for local use.
Yeah.
That's not
like the royalties that Twiggy Forest's paying to the Injibani people in the Pilbara, like those royalties.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Charles, the thing is, look, we have to be realistic about this. We aren't at
wait a minute. I've just worked out. I've just worked out why it's all right.
Why is it all right?
Oh, yeah, because I was just spitballing. She did it quietly.
Oh.
She did it quietly. So whereas Morrison would have gone up there and
with a lump of coal.
And, I don't know, smelled some gas.
He would have had a burning. He would have brought a burning gas torch into the Parliament, or some giant, those giant flames of fire outside Crown Casino. Morrison would have had that inside the.
He would have got a tank of gas and smelt it. Inhaled it. No, she just did it quietly overnight.
That's the way to do it.
And that's much more environmental because you don't get the whole press releases and things like that.
Until the gas comes online, then it will be incredibly bright, presumably. But Charles, look, I got to explain something to you though, because I think you got to see it from the perspective of where we really are. Like, we all want a zero emissions economy. We all want to have a clean, green future of the sort that Anthony Albanese talked about. But you have to understand we're in transition. We can't just go boom, boom. Like we're just running off batteries and solar power now. We need fossil fuels in the interim just for a brief period during the transition, which is why it's so sensible that Tanya Plibersek authorised all these wells until the year 2077, at which point we might almost have decarbonised.
Yeah, well, and the good thing is that in the meantime, there's no need to transition because we've got all these gas wells.
Well, the other thing is, I presume Tanya Plibersek won't be alive in 2027, so it's not going to matter to her so much, is it? The thing that I like, Charles, is that if you go back to the archives, we've been doing this podcast for quite a long time. When Labor got elected, our first question was how long till they disappoint us?
Disappoint us. We'll mark this date, late February 2023. I know, what are we talking about? I've been disappointed for months.
It's just the thing with Labor, and indeed any new government, is it's just important not to have any expectations of them.
Yes.
It just saves time. And look, if the Greens were to somehow seize power off the back of this, I'm fully confident that they would be equally brilliant
disappointing
at letting down all the principles they got elected.
Yeah, imagine Adam Band buying his 7th property to negative gear.
The thing is, it isn't having that big an impact on the planet. I mean, people are alarmist about this stuff. I mean, let's just choose a random example I saw in the news today.
Yes.
Over in Venice. Have you ever been to Venice? Beautiful place.
You
know the famous canals of Venice?
Yes.
Just stunning waterways.
Yes.
You get in a gondola and someone sings as they sort of use a pole to ferry you around.
Yes.
It's very nice.
Yes.
Except at the moment where there's drought. Can I show you this picture of this entirely dry canal in Venice?
Wow.
Because the drought is so extreme.
But
there's just no water.
But with the rising sea levels, there'll be lots of Venices. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Well, it would be a question of time. Yeah, well, it is sinking slowly into the sea.
I think the whole of Glenelg in Adelaide will be the Venice by 2050.
Well, that's a very good point, Charles, is that eventually all of these wells that Tanya Plibersek's approved will just be eventually swamped underwater by the rising sea levels that they themselves create. A form of poetic justice. What a wonderful world we live in.
And that has been the heavy-handed sarcasm report.
Yes, it has.
The Chaser Report. Less news, less often.
So I am absolutely exhausted this morning, Dom.
Oh, really?
Because over the weekend, me and my 12-year-old son, the one who doesn't think I'm funny anymore.
So you've been spending the weekend trying to win his affection back in other ways, have you?
Yes. I had a whole lot of books in this office that I had to move out of.
Yep.
A lot of them happened to be the remaindered editions of my book, American Hoax.
Yes, I've seen that office, and there were a remarkable number of copies of your book, American Hoax. And the thing I found most impressive about all the copies, was that it was two different editions, the first edition and then the second.
Yes.
So however that worked, you hadn't learnt from the first one.
No.
And you somehow got a lot of stock of the second one as well. So if anyone wants, I presume either of them are available at chasershop.com.
Well, this is the thing. So they weren't, but I, over the weekend, have now decided to put them up on chasershop.com. What do you think is a fair price to pay? I'll just give you a context. This is a book that is very much out of date. Like if you ever write a sort of tome that you want to be remembered for, probably don't write it about the sort of politics of the present based in 2006.
We've both made this mistake. I wrote a dictionary specific to 2020, which I was warned people wouldn't buy when we hit 2021, and that's exactly what happened. It's all about COVID, and it's actually a lot of the jokes still would hold today. Well, I mean, no one knew COVID would still be here in 2023, to be fair to me. But no, American Hoax, which I have read, did seem of its time, Charles.
Yes.
Time we're now well past.
Yeah, well, one of the because the premise of the book I still quite like, which is that I set up all these characters, and it was in that period when people still trusted Wikipedia to be true and things like that. But it was also very easy to create fiction online. So I created all these characters and then put them out into the real world while I was living in America, right? So, and I named all the characters after game show hosts, after Australian game show hosts and media personalities. So I had people like Dr. Edward Maguire and the poet character, the lesbian poet character was Corinne Al Grant,
right?
Who was an Iranian refugee. But
I think you'd get cancelled for that these days.
There was also, she was deaf, mute, and blind, and she actually won. This is the thing about the book; it was remarkable, like because my supposition was, because I've never really understood poetry, but my supposition about poetry was that it's more about the bio than the actual words on the page, right? And so I created this character, which you're right, is terribly unsound, which was a deaf-mute Iranian refugee and who just wrote about peace. And she won, like, the New York Peace Prize for one of her pieces of poetry that I made up.
Well, you might actually be a good poet.
I was published in a book. And Dr. Edward Maguire got a whole chapter in a book about freedom. Anyway, point is, my son was packing up all these books, and he was in charge of packing up all the American hoaxes. So he did a very large job, and he just loved the fact that, like, my face is on the front cover. And
there is, in fact, your face is on the cover about 20 times. It is for a book that's ostensibly not about you. It's amazingly narcissistic.
Oh, it's amazingly narcissistic. The dedication is to myself with frank admiration. But anyway, he was very taken with it and encouraged me to sell it on Chaser's Shop. So I've put it up on sale, but I haven't decided on a price.
Charles,
what do you think the price should be? Like, are we talking?
How much is your career worth? Is my question. Don't read it, and if you do read it, don't report the poetry prize thing to any news outlets, because you will be massively cancelled. I don't know. What was it retailing for? $30 initially?
It would have been like $27.95. I think. So
what's
second
the
edition.
deflation on that? To hear?
Deflation.
I mean, because how much is the postage going to cost?
But inflation. Surely it should.
You think
be
it's worth
more?
If I remember a joke full of specific topical references to 2006, it's not wine.
It's like fine wine.
Yeah.
My words are like fine wine. Okay, so what are we thinking? Like, do you reckon people would buy it for $10? Because the other thing is, there's a few other things that we need to get rid of in the Chaser's Shop.
And I don't think people would. I think people who listen to this podcast at least have a chance of being interested enough in what you do.
The avocado pull toy.
Is that still?
We've got a few left of those.
Why don't you do a combo?
Give
one of each thing away, and it's free.
Look, here's 3 things I don't want. I'll buy them all.
Just pay the budget. Why are you buying one thing that you couldn't possibly want? Why don't we throw in a large inflatable pool toy, which has been scientifically proven to be not fun at all?
Because we've got lots of Chaser annuals as well left over.
Also old topical material, but less old than admittedly American Hoax.
That's how I do. I attach it with. Yes, I sell it off with something that's far more good, like the annual. Yeah, that's how I'll do it. I'll bundle it.
Bundle it all up.
Yes.
The problem isn't your problem that postage will cost you postage will be $15.
Maybe
No
I
one's
make it.
gonna buy it.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do the whole trick of free, just have to pay shipping and handling.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And the
Free
shipping and handling can be $25.
People would assume it was a real price.
Yeah.
Except that we've just said it on the podcast. Yeah, well, I mean, log on to chasershop.com and see what ridiculous price Charles has given his own work.
Yeah.
But you have got a lot of copies. I mean, there must be, 70 or something?
Yeah. Look, it's limited edition, only 70.
Should we use the copies as insulation in our new podcast year? Because we're going to have to. We can't do this on your balcony forever. At some point, the neighbours are going to complain.
No, yeah, we've got to get the new. Well, do you reckon? See, I think my book is bouncing with such ideas that it would be too bouncy a surface to podcast on.
Either that, or our words will just sort of disappear into it, never to be heard of again, much like the book's content.
It was a bestseller.
It was enjoyable.
Yeah,
I enjoyed reading it.
Okay, well, there you go.
The fundamental
no, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll tell you what. I'll add value. I'll sign all the copies.
It's so sweet that you think that would add value. But Charles, if I remember, the problem with it was, and it was a fairly major one, you couldn't actually tell if you'd done the things for real or if you just made them up.
I did do them.
That was the thing. Knowing you, I knew that you had done them for real. But so just if you buy the book and read it, you need to understand that he's not making it up.
Yeah.
He actually did get them to do these things because you wrote them as if they were a real person. You didn't write, I created this character who then went on to win this prize. You wrote it as though it was a fictional character.
Did I?
Yeah, from memory.
Oh,
from memory.
Man, what a flaw.
So, but, in many ways, the hoax was on you. But, no, look, it's an interesting read. And you just remember that it's all real.
Buy it, if nothing else, for the footnotes. That was I did a whole edit, which was just based on making the footnotes funny. And the chapter titles are pretty good as well.
Charles, I've never met anyone with such an enduring ability to enjoy their own work as you. And the thing that I love about all the sort of faux narcissism, like dedication, is that it's not actually faux. All right, there you go. So Charles's old book at chasershop.com. I don't know if any of my old ones are there anymore either. I did have some at some point.
Yeah. They sold quite well. They sold very well.
Well, the 2020 dictionary sold very well in 2020. That was the. It was a brief success.
So, Dom.
Yes.
On this topical podcast today,
the chances that anyone's listening this far in the episode is minimal. If you did listen,
we haven't talked about.
If you listen this far, because we haven't been getting people to put reviews on Apple Podcasts, which is very useful for us. So please go on Apple Podcasts and use the code word. What's the code we're going to be? Something topical.
Tanya Plibersek just approved 116 gas mines in Queensland.
That trips off the tongue.
Eternal disappointment.
Let's just stop the episode and reflect a little bit, shall we? Our Gears from Road, we're part of the Iconoclast network, and the natural gas you're using will soon be approved by Tanya Plibersek.